And I taught myself how to run. And then shortly after that, we moved house and we moved to a place called Upper Rissington, which is a tiny little village. And it happens that there's a tri club called the North Cotswold Try and Run Club that had newly formed in 2016 here. And I got a message from the chairman asking me if I wanted to join them. And
that's the voice of this week's guest, Pippa Marsden. Pippa started running in 2016 to help manage postnatal depression, and it ended up transforming her life. She struggled as a child with eating disorders due to undiagnosed ADHD. She found strength, structure, and confidence through sport, ultimately losing 6 stone and becoming a qualified coach and representing GB age group through triathlon. She's completed marathons, Ironmans, and she's qualified multiple times for international competition, all while raising a family. Now she's launching a coaching and nutritional business to help others find their path to wellness. It's a story of resilience, reinvention, and finding purpose through triathlon. And I hope you enjoy Pippa's story. Hope you're all well and training's going well. And if you've been racing, I hope you got the results that you required. Personally, not having any goals in mind as such. No training plan, no structure. I have got myself back into the pool, and after between 5 or 6 months out of the water, not gonna lie, it's been quite tough. Tough, I mean tough to be motivated to actually get to the swimming pool itself. Once I'm in the water, not a problem. I quite enjoy it. But getting started again when you've been out for so long, it's quite a struggle. I'm just taking one session at a time, getting the feel for the water again, and then build it up and see where it takes me. And I guess just showing up and getting the lengths in is going to help. And it's quite a mental battle, I think, at the moment between me and swimming. But we shall see. Still continuing with a bit of mountain biking, been out a couple of times and been out with a former guest and my teammate from WBC, John Sharp, over to the Hamilton Hill downhill mountain bike park. First time we had a really good session. Second time not so much. I got 2 punctures, which I was quite annoyed about. But yeah, he's enjoyed that. And good luck to John. He's going to be swimming over in Rutland weekend coming up. I think he's doing a 2K swim. So good luck with that. And still been doing some track running with WBC Saturday mornings, which has been going quite well. Some really good sets put on by the coaches, and also been running out with Mrs. C on a Monday evening just to help give her some support for the marathon training that she's getting on with. And that's about it. A couple of podcast recommendations. Miles from Ordinary, that's the podcast with Jess Lamont and Bex Milne, and they had Georgia Taylor Brown on, which was quite a good listen. Georgia went into what she's been doing for the last several months while not triathloning, so that was good. And then the second one is a podcast called Everyone Can Try, and I think it's part of the Brownlee training. It features Johnny Brownlee, and they were talking to Malcolm Brown, who coached both Johnny and Alistair to the Olympics, which was a good listen also. So I can recommend those two. Um, Sadly, the Tour de France has finished, but it was a fantastic race. 3 weeks of great cycling and great viewing. We had the Ironman Leeds at the weekend, which I believe Sam Laidlaw won. It was a bit under the radar, I thought, from a social media side. But apparently he had bossed it, won by minutes. We also had the first Super Try of the year, which was really good. Good fun to watch. So if you haven't seen that, I would definitely recommend that one. A few surprising results on there also. Coming up next week is the Cross Duathlon and Triathlon European Championships over in Czechia, and a few of our guests who've been on the pod are racing over there. I was meant to be racing, but I've pulled out. Decided that we would save our holidays for later on in the year, and not go and race. So if you are racing over in Czechia at those races, good luck. Hope you enjoy it for one, and get the results that you're after. Right, it's time for the main event. Like I said, Pippa Marsden reached out and said that she'd like to share her story, and what a story. So I really do hope you enjoy this, and we shall see you on the other side. So welcome along. Thank you for taking your time out, for coming onto the podcast, reaching out and wanting to share your story. Really excited about hearing it. And if you could introduce yourself,
I will.
what you did growing up as a kid, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I'm Pippa Marsden. I, as a child, I wasn't really a sporty at all. I guess, well, I was. I guess I was a bit of a jack of all trades. I was interested in lots and lots of different things. So I was a horse rider. I had sort of like a real obsession with horses and ponies, and I was a show jumper until I was about 17, 18. And but then sort of mixed in with that, I was privately educated, so we had quite a lot of opportunities to do loads of different sports, and I loved like I had really good hand-eye coordination, so I did a lot of racket sports, played badminton and tennis for Basingstoke, and but kind of I wasn't really never really got into anything, never really committed to anything as such. And then I guess like a lot of girls, like puberty hit and hormones are everywhere. And my like secondary school was all girls, and it was a convent school, and it was quite a rough experience for me.
Mm.
And it was also quite academically pressured, and also quite pressured from there was sort of an ethos at my school that you were either someone that they could put into national teams, or you kind of were just sort of left by the wayside a bit. And I was quite mediocre at quite a lot of things. And I mean, I went to school with Alex Danson, who was the England hockey captain, and Charlotte Purdue, marathon runner. And so these people were sort of just really, they shone. And then there was sort of the rest of us. And actually at school, I found myself in music really.
Mm.
And I was quite talented chorally, and but I think just at school I had a really rough time because of lack of organization. I just didn't apply myself. I was always looking out the window, and I was frustrating to a lot of the school leadership. I think they just didn't really know what to do with me. I was quite miserable a lot of the time. I didn't really fit into with any of my peers, and it sort of over my teenage years kind of spiraled into depression and anxiety, and then anorexia and bulimia for about 15 years. So the the end of my teens, or like mid-teens to sort of mid-20s, was pretty hectic and all over the place. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at all, if I'm honest. I knew I was quite gifted, but just completely lacking in direction. And I didn't really understand this sort of I didn't really understand the system and why at 18 you should know what you want to do with your life. And I questioned it, and I had some big questions at 18 that people just we just had to get on with it. And I couldn't, because I didn't know where to get on with it or what to do with getting on with it, So it was sort of I felt like a bit of an outlier, I guess. All the way through until I mean I eventually settled on a career in I dropped out of uni 3 times. So I had good grades and I got into 3 different universities and I tried them all and then didn't finish courses. And that became a bit of a pattern. So I tried 2 of them full time and just didn't fly at all. I went away to one university and came back in about 7 months. I just couldn't seem to hold my life together. I'd found alcohol and boys and all sorts of stuff that I was just really unproductive. And I think I was sort of on a bit of self-destruct, really. Um, Eventually went into pharmaceuticals and um, equally, like I had a good job and I thought I should enjoy my job, and I kind of convinced myself that I did enjoy my job, but actually I didn't really know what the point was. Um, and I I really didn't find myself until I guess after I had my children. I um so I met the father of my children at 25, and then I had my son at 29. And after that, I had 2 children quite close together, and I sort of walked away from my career in pharmaceuticals and decided that because of all of the struggles that I'd had with eating and stuff, and I didn't want anyone else to suffer the way that I did. I went into nutrition and started to retrain as a nutritional therapist. And that was great, apart from it turned out that that course was probably the most challenging academically that there is. So I've got most of the way through that, but I have struggled massively with 6,000 word essays that need 60 references with them. I think I just realized as I was going through that, with the extra challenges of children and trying to work what I'm doing around childcare and never really being able to have a chunk of time to sit down and focus, that I more than ever I was just unable to sit down and focus.
Mm.
Um, and uh, I think probably the thing that kicked me off into finding triathlon was I struggled so badly with postnatal depression after, well, all of my children really, but most notably the first 2. And after I had she's now 9, after I had my daughter, I just couldn't, I had to do something about it. So I went for a run, and I was 16 and a half stone. I was really overweight, and just like completely down and out. And I just decided to go for a walk run. And I listened to the Audio Fuel Chrissy Wellington, and I taught myself how to run. And then shortly after that, we moved house. And we moved to a place called Upper Rissington, which is a tiny little village. And it happens that there's a tri club called the North Cotswold Try and Run Club, that had newly formed in 2016 here, and I got a message from the chairman asking me if I wanted to join them. And I unfortunately at that point they didn't cater at all for beginners,
Right.
and they said that it would be fine. But for them, I don't think they had any concept of what a beginner actually would be. And I'd run like maybe I'd plodded about 4K, where they kind of took me down to the next village and we did some hill reps and then we ran back and it was 7 miles and it was hot and I remember and it's hilly around here. And I remember coming up this sort of steep hill out of Great Rissington and the coach Den was like, Pippa, what is it? Is it your chest? Is it your legs? I was, it's just everything.
Everything.
And I don't know how I got back from
Yeah.
that session, but it kind of kicked me up the arse, I think, that I could I just I realized that I could go from 4K to 7 miles and I didn't need to, it's probably not a good training strategy for anyone, but I realized that if I needed to, I could do that. And so what else could I do? And then I guess before I knew it, I was hanging around with people who were running a half at the weekend for fun. And I was, a good weekend for me was having a glass of wine and managing to feed two children and keep them happy. Um, yeah,
Had you heard of triathlon before they got in touch with you?
nope.
No.
I mean, I'd obviously probably heard, I could probably work out roughly what it was, but I mean, the irony of the whole thing was I then went and bought an Ironman branded running buggy, a double one. I had no idea what Ironman was, and it was on my buggy, and I had no idea how pretentious that looked until I looked back at the photos, and I was like, what was I thinking? But I know,
Ignorance is bliss, though, isn't it, sometimes?
yeah, and I was totally naive. I had no idea what any of it was, and I really wouldn't until I didn't until 2018, and so I got the bug. I
Yeah.
ran a couple of I've run a few half marathons. So I think I learned what sport taught me actually was that I I found a hyper focus. I found structure. I found a really good kind of practice ground for saying I'm going to do something, doing it, finishing it, dopamine hit, achievement, and stuff that I'd never actually managed to come by in my life before because I'd never been in a position to achieve anything that I was proud of. It's suddenly, yes.
And do you think that's because you enjoyed it?
Yeah, and yes, and I think it was so many different things. I think it was I didn't have a personality really after children. I felt like I'd lost my identity. And it gave me something that I could say that I was a half marathoner, I was a marathoner, I was an Ironman,
Mm.
I was inspiring my children. It was something that really resonated with me as something that would inspire people.
I do find that weird, that comment that you didn't have an identity after you had your children, because I've heard it before.
It happens to a lot
But
of people, I
but your
think.
identity is that you're a mum,
Yeah.
you know? And I know some mums are like, yeah, but I want more than that. That's
I think,
because it comes all encompassing, I suppose, doesn't it? That
yeah, and I think you always, and I've still, if I was really honest, I probably would still have a chip on my shoulder about being at the bottom of the pile. And I think we do. I think when you have children, and especially, I think there's a difference also. I won't go into too much detail, but I think there's also a difference between having children in a a really nice sort of emotionally supportive family and also then having children in a relationship that's
yeah.
abusive, not right, with an alcoholic. And, that was sort of the background. And he also worked away a lot. His job was and way more than mine ever could. So I stayed at home with the children and we had very separate roles. And anything, I was sort of a glorified nanny, I guess. And I think there's a danger of that. Our situation wasn't really unique. You can have more respectful relationships for sure, but I think any relationship where there's that very definite divide of the dad or the man goes out and earns some money and then the woman mum stays at home, it's very much these are our separate roles but those are your jobs and any time you want for yourself around that, there's sort of a lack of respect for it.
Mm.
And it's very secondary. And I
Go on.
Oh, sorry. So I found that I was in the end I was quite forceful about having my time and my time was running. My time was was And as far as I was concerned, I was sort of paying into my future as well and the future of my children because I wanted to model. There was something really important that I
Yeah,
wanted to model to them.
yeah, yeah,
That this is longevity. And so I guess, in that vein, over the years, I've worked really hard to um, to find some maturity as an athlete, and like my whole sort of approach to it has changed in terms, and that's so I'm a coach as well, and I guess I try to be my own coach mentally around it, and keep sight of the bigger picture
yeah.
in terms of where we're going with our health and our like bone density and muscle mass, and trying to do the right things as far as that's concerned, and realizing that being a triathlete doesn't give you a free ticket to longevity necessarily, and that there are still some extra things you have to do. There's sort of a mental process I've had to go through to realize all of that, and actually you have to still be quite smart about it. You can't just do the miles. And one of the amazing things that happened to us, where I think the penny dropped for me was, I wish I could remember her name, and I won't try and remember it because it would just be insulting. But we met the winner of the 75 to 80 women's category standard distance in Alston. And she'd come out to Poland, travelled independently, and she'd won her age category. And she was dancing on the finish line at 8 o'clock at night, um, absolutely full of life. And I think Andy and I looked at each other and we realised in that moment, we think we've won now, aged like 40 and 45. We think we're winning, but she's winning. She's got to the other end of her life, and she's still independent and healthy and able to race the same race that we are at 40 and 45. We're not there yet, you know.
I think that we are all winning. If you've got into the mindset that you're in now, and you just mentioned one of the biggest words, forget sport, forget triathlon, forget everything else, longevity,
Mm.
having that, and it's not just living longer, it's
It's health
living
span.
it's living better, living healthier, isn't it?
Mm.
You know,
It's a health span rather
it's
than
a
a lifespan.
lifestyle. That's what it
Yeah,
is. That's what it
yeah,
is. And and the sport that we do, multisport, is part of that lifestyle. And like you just said, it's not just the sport, it's everything else that goes around it. And
yeah,
mentally, it's getting good sleep. It's all these pillars, good diet, in my case,
yeah.
not drinking and all those things that, you know,
And
that's the key.
it's also, I think, and that's one of the big reasons I looked for someone like Angela, actually, because I know that she also has, so she's quite competitive in the powerlifting,
Yeah.
and
World
um
champ,
yes, yes, and so
several weights, I think,
yeah, and
events.
she
Yeah.
said what the thing that I've always felt, I was absolutely crap at strength and conditioning for the longest time. And I just would have a training plan and I would just do the miles. And I was always going to have some niggles, and it was just a matter of time. But certainly it was a combination of realizing that muscle mass is not still not guaranteed if you're a triathlete. You can do cardio all day long and still lose muscle mass. Um, and I think then that my third pregnancy made me stop. I ran till 35 weeks. And I did Borton 10K at 35 weeks, which was really fun. It was just really fun to be at the back. And
Yeah.
I did it in an hour and 19. It was definitely my going out with a bang thing. Um, but after that, I promised myself I would do strength and conditioning until the end of my pregnancy and then beyond. Um, and that made me stop doing so much impact stuff. I wasn't riding a bike. Um, and so I did strength and conditioning, and then I wanted to continue it. But what I didn't want to do, and I've always found that doing strength and conditioning at the wrong time and doing too much of it ahead of a watt bike session, or something where you have to hit some numbers, it's always just made me want to forget the whole lot and go to bed. Because like, if you do a heavy strength and conditioning session one day and then you're getting on the bike and trying to hit some numbers the next day, you're just going to feel like crap.
Yeah,
And I needed somebody to try to get me doing both, but without compromising either. And Angela said to me that she wanted to do both to prove a point that you
yeah.
could do both. And so I was like, this is my person.
Well, I think
Um,
it's consistency, isn't it? I mean, I was the same. I used to do a strength session, legs on a Friday, and then expect to go and do well at the track that
yeah,
on Saturday, and my legs were in bits. I had serious DOMs. So exactly the same. You got to look at it and adjust where you put your strength sessions in, and
yeah,
also, how much you're actually going to do.
exactly.
I can sort
Yeah,
of,
you have to be realistic. And I think I've worked with PTs before, and but they haven't been able to glue it together with the multi-sport training. And that's a game changer for me, is and there's a couple of techniques that she's given me that I probably won't give away, but she's given me some strategies to deal with the day after a heavy leg session. And the mentality of it has to change as well, and you have to treat that session differently. Whereas before I was going into it and that, I was doing a PT session or trying to do what they told me to do, and then going back to just doing my training, I guess, as if it was separate, and being really disappointed. And the thing that would happen is I would never do strength and conditioning for another 9 months.
yeah,
And it would be counterproductive. So yeah, I mean, it's so key. And I think one of the things that's compounded that was I'm doing some CPD with Dr. Stacey Sims. I
okay,
don't know if you've heard of her.
no,
Um, but she's done she's PhD qualified, and she's done an awful lot of she's done, I think, about 107 peer-reviewed journals
wow,
into women's physiology and how we're not small men, and how
yeah,
our hormone cycles and our you know all of these things that we struggle with mean that training the way that people have told us to train is wrong. And there's a more specific way that we can train, especially over 40 and approaching menopause, to work with our hormones, um, that will help us to lose body fat and maintain lean muscle mass. And so I read, she's got a couple of books out, and I read the first one, was absolutely hooked on. It's sort of nutritional therapy meets sports coaching, which is absolutely everything I do.
mm,
And she's got a couple of CPD courses. So I'm doing the Menopause 2.0 course at the moment.
great,
Um, and it really is talking about, I mean, it's slightly different for, I guess, people who actually have a sports goal, but for general sort of longevity and maintaining lean mass, they're talking about doing like low rep but high weights, and also the same principle in sprints and
mm,
things like that. So quite short sessions, but really high intensity, don't have to last long as you're working like close to your max for those reps. But it's completely different to how most women would approach a gym session. I guess it would be sort of quite low intensity cardio and then high reps and low weights, and it's like turn that on its head and you've got what's actually going to help. So she's working really hard to change um the perceptions of the general public, and as I guess as many people as she can, as
yeah,
to how women can achieve health span and longevity through maintaining muscle mass. And so it's a combination of all of these things, I
yeah,
think, all of my
absolutely.
influences that's got me here.
So just going back to you'd started your triathlon and we'd got to your first session with him. How did that progress then with the club?
Um, so we had a heyday in the club where we had lots of girls of a similar age, all doing events together, and it was really fab for a while. And then I think people like things, life changes, and people move on, and I think there was also a bit of a split in the club in terms of focus. And being ADHD, which I didn't know at the time, I just wanted to do everything. So some of them went off and did ultras, and some of us were going off to do triathlons. And I didn't really know where I wanted to put my eggs, so I signed up for ultras, and I think signed up for the Amersham X Energy ultra, and then Bolton. And someone was like, "Do you know what? You're going to kill yourself if you do all of that." And so I had to choose. And the way I came into triathlon was because I joined as a runner, was quite bizarre. I did Edinburgh, and I did marathon, and then I did Chester, like back to back, sort of like I finished one and got shopping happy and went and clicked on a button and bought another one. And then overtrained and had a niggle and thought, right, after Chester, I was a bit flat, and I'd achieved my goal. I did two sub fours, and I was like, right, no running for me for 2 weeks. And they, being a triathlon club, they were running pool sessions. So I got in the pool, and I didn't think about it, and I just swam 2K. And there were people who were coming to swimming as adults, and they were like, hang on a sec, where did she come from? And I realized that muscle memory is a huge thing. And I was taught to swim by my primary school teacher who swam for Kent. That was her special interest. So she taught me to swim really well. And I hadn't swum since I was 10. And I got in the pool, and it turned out I could swim really well. And I thought, okay, right. So there's one thing left. And so I then sort of started looking at road bikes and things like that, by which point my ex-husband was like, oh, I think this is the start of the end. And then my friend who was in the tri club, she had tried to get to the Bolton start line before and not quite made it. And she could see that I was obviously doing fairly well. And she was like, come and do an Ironman with me. And I mean, I had no idea what Ironman was still. So I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds like a great idea. And so I actually entered Bolton um, about 3 weeks before I got a road bike, and then started training. Um, and turned out I was, with my show jumper legs, my muscle memory from show jumping, I had pretty good quads. And so it was quite quick up a hill, which is pretty important for Bolton.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, and it was just one of these times in life where my daughter had just started preschool 2 days a week. My son had just started actual school. So I had 2 days a week where I would literally drop the kids at the school gates and train from the gates and train back to the gates. And I didn't do it in a really kind of, typical way. I just kind of crammed it in when I could. And I was knackered, and I was probably like energy deficient, most likely. I couldn't keep weight on, and I was eating honey and yogurt like out of the tub. But I had a blast, and it was still one of the most fab things I've ever done. I finished in about 14 hours. And I can never imagine doing another one. But it was still one of these kind of just bucket list. Well, it wasn't even on my bucket list, if I'm totally honest. But it is now, retrospectively.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably, in my my opinion, one of the best ways of doing an Ironman. Just going
Totally.
completely blind and don't
Yeah.
even realize what it's gonna,
I
entail. Just
I
go and
had
do it, and then it's
When I did
done.
an Ironman, I hadn't even done a park run.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had no
yeah,
idea. I'd rushed into it. I had no idea. And I remember when we entered, the elevation of the bike course was supposed to be like 5,000 feet or something. And between entering and actually doing the race, they put it up to 9,000 feet. They changed the course. And there was absolute outrage from so many people. Apart from, I didn't have a clue what any of it meant because I'd barely ever ridden a bike.
yeah.
So I was like, oh well, it was going to be hilly anyway. Now it's really hilly. What's the difference? So but
Brilliant.
I loved every minute of the training, and I wasn't stressed. I didn't have anything to prove. I
Yeah,
didn't need the speed. I was just doing it because I hopped on the back of my friend's journey. And it was one of the best things ever. And then I kind of got all competitive and I thought, right, well, if I can do an Ironman, I can do half and I'm going to get quicker and I'm going to then be competitive. And then I think I got all a bit like type A about it. Um, and then I guess,
That's quite refreshing for you to admit, though. You know,
yeah,
there's so many people out there, especially in the age group, that are like type A, and
I did. And I think I did actually go through a bit of a bad patch with it around probably the year before Poland, I guess, around qualifying and not like trying to qualify and not qualifying and then not qualifying and I got a roll down place. And I think it's when having a partner that's also pretty good works against you a bit because I just felt the pressure. He had a lot of training history and I had none. And I just felt way out of my depth. And I did,
there's no logic there, is there? Because he was a professional athlete.
no,
You know what I mean?
no.
Where's what are you supposed to do?
But exactly. But you know, I just felt so hard done by, and no, like unnecessarily so. But I think I then went through a bit of a Um, I think we did Poland and then, or maybe it was approaching Poland, and I would just get my knickers in a twist about because we don't have a lot of access to swimming here. We don't have a lot of swimming opportunities. We've got Cirencester that's 40 minutes away. We've got it's probably about a 15-20 minute drive to a pool, but they're always booked. And so if you're late to a pool session, you don't get the whole session done. And I can't I can't handle not. I've learned a lot about myself through sport, I guess. I can't handle not finishing a session. I'd rather not start the damn thing. So if I'm 5 minutes late to leave the house with all the clobber to get to the pool and it's not going to be enough time, I'm like, do you know what? There's no point in doing it anyway. And I did go through a stage where I will admit that I think the pressure got to me. And what pressure, really? It's something that we're supposed to enjoy, but it did.
Yes, you've hit the nail right on the head there. It's something we are supposed to enjoy and we do it
Yeah,
for fun. But, you know, having just raced last week and the pressure that you put on yourself for
yeah,
no good reason, because, nobody thinks doesn't matter where you come or what you do, nobody else cares. And I say this all the time, nobody else cares apart
no,
from you. And it's good that you care, but it's not good that you care that much or stress that much that it's debilitating.
yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
to
And
some people, that's what it does get that way. I saw it this week.
I actually saw it. My friend who asked me to do the Ironman with her, she went on to do the long distance world championships in Ibiza.
Yeah.
Might be 2 years ago now. Well, I mean, she did it because she felt like because she could, and because she qualified, and because she felt like it was something she needed to do in her life. Um, but she's never done triathlon since. She loves her road bike, and she's a cyclist, but she's never run a step in 2 years. It completely burnt her out, and I don't think she had the best experience. But it is, and I did have to do a certain amount of contract because I'm a health coach as well, and an
Yeah.
NLP therapist. I have the skills to talk myself through some stuff, and I think the third pregnancy was a blessing in disguise, or that's what I thought at the time. And it gave me an opportunity to take some time out and reevaluate what I really wanted. And I had free scope to walk away completely after that. Um, and I had to contract with myself to say, right, I'll come back and do it. I feel the pull now. I didn't feel the pull. Like approaching the Worlds in September 23, I wasn't sure I was in it, and I was sort of like uh, I was sad, but also there was a bit of relief that I think I'd burnt out a bit.
Mm.
Um, but coming back to it, I I feel like I've contracted with myself, and I've basically said, look, if you can't be sensible about this, if you can't do this in the spirit in which it's intended, then don't do it. Like nobody says you have to do it, and don't take a place from someone who's going to enjoy it. that, to then go and be miserable about it, because that's just not, we don't get paid for this. We actually spend an awful lot of money on doing this, and it has to be something that you really enjoy. And I think I've got to that point now where I know that I'll go to Pontevedra next year feeling bulletproof, feeling like just actually being there is enough. And I've heard so much since then about people feeling under pressure, and it's a real shame, um, because and I don't think it's anyone's fault. I just think
No,
it
I
comes
think
with
it's.
wearing a kit that looks like that.
Well,
Um,
I don't think it's even that. I think Pete, it's not. Sometimes it's the kit. Sometimes it's the pressure about. It could be you might be near a podium. Not that I know that feeling, but expectations that people put on themselves. There's other times it's just the whole thing just becomes overwhelming for people because of
mm,
you know it's a huge stage at the end of the day. Yes, it's only age group, um, and but it's on the world stage or the European stage, and you've got the kit on and everything else, and all the hard
yeah,
work. You just want to do yourself justice. All the hard work you've put in to get there, and all
yeah.
those things start swimming around in your head, and it's like,
Yeah, I guess, and even for us, I guess, well, for me, just racing internationally is a huge ordeal. Getting your bike out to
yeah,
another country, and it's something I've still only done a few times. And you're in a different country, and it's sort of I think just that is a mental load in itself, but then having to perform in a way that surpasses anything you've ever done. That, and there being a different, maybe different temperature, and there's so much about it that's,
but I
a
think
big
it's
deal.
yeah, it is a big deal. But all these things you've just got to embrace. You've got to embrace from start to finish. You've underlined and you've ticked all the boxes for your training. You've you've got all your gear. You've qualified. You're worthy to be there. And then you've got to take from the very moment you pack your bike up all the way through to unpacking it at the other end. It's just you've got to embrace whatever happens. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
you've got to
yeah. You've
try
got to
and
enjoy it for
take
what it is.
yeah, and take the positives, even if because nothing ever goes 100% swimmingly. There's always something, that turns up. Um, but you've just got to try, and this is what I think that you've got to try and see or grasp the positives out of all those situations that you come against, and just be positive throughout it all. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. It's all part of the story, and it will
Yeah,
be whether you like it or not, really. So
yeah.
yeah,
And it's like making memories as well. I mean, myself and my wife, we've done this a lot. And every time we go away, it's not just the race. We enjoy it as like a holiday as well. And you know what I mean? It's making memories, seeing new places that you possibly wouldn't have gone to
yeah,
ordinarily.
absolutely.
All these things, meeting new people, and seeing faces that you follow on Instagram, and all these different things that you get out of it. That people just, it's not just the race. The race is the big part of it, but it's everything else
Yeah.
that goes with it. You know,
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a group of us, like we were 35 to 39s in Poland, and there was a group of us that we'd all been on Strava together
yeah,
and like watching each other's training, and we'd found each other on Instagram and stuff, and there were four or five of us that, we got photos at the start. Like we never met each other,
no,
but we were all in the same boat for that one event, and we were terrified, and it was great at the same time, and then we all met up at the finish line, and it was really lovely.
yeah. But it's great making friends like that, and especially having them at the race. They're in the same position as you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's invaluable, isn't it? It's like an instant team that you've suddenly got, isn't it? From
yeah,
nothing,
yeah,
from nowhere. You know,
yeah. It was
it's so good.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. So from your Ironman, how did
Yeah.
how did that develop?
Um,
What was next?
so, so the next thing was that I decided I was going to do the half distance, but try and be competitive. And I signed up to a coaching company called DO3.
Okay,
Um, and I absolutely loved it. I was part of like a team program, and I was I built on the fitness that I already had, and I was um pretty much like in terms of my relationship, I had sort of no relationship left. So we were literally tag teaming and I had loads of free time to focus on training and I would just do my sort of childcare job around that. And I was literally the fittest I'd ever been. And then on the so I went to Tenerife and did a training camp that I was doing annually then. And then I also went to Mallorca, and that's where I met Andy. And that was literally days before lockdown. So we came back on like the 14th of March, and then the 23rd was lockdown. And then everything got cancelled, and I'd entered a couple of halves, um, we and I'd entered Leeds, and none of that happened. And then I ended up my ex-husband moved out at the end of April, so a month after lockdown started. And then when I had the kids, I was like solo parenting and doing like 400s on the treadmill whilst changing Dolly's clothes and like trying to stop them from fighting and all of that. Um, whilst, doing an hour outside a day, and it was all really intense and a very, very strange. And I think in that time I realized that in order to be competitive at the half distance, I was going to have to do an awful lot more training than I was. And so it just made sense to cut my distance down and take my fitness to the standard distance, which scared me quite a lot, I think, because it's my strength is just keeping going. I'm a really decent sub 4 marathon runner, and at the time I was probably a decent sub 1:45 half runner, and like but then to do a 10K was just no, not my strong point. And also running off the bike when you spent yourself because the bike's your strength is, that's tricky too. So it's taken me a while, I think, to kind of, you know, get get my head around what my strategy is for that.
Mm.
Um, and also it brings a new kind of pressure into the water, I think, because you need to, it's not just keeping going, it's the shorter distance and it's a bit more frantic and keeping calm. And yeah, so I guess it's over quicker, but it's a lot, I find it a lot more intense,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely. I mean, I think the shorter you go, the more intense it is. Yes, it's over quicker. And people say, oh, well, it's only a sprint. Yeah, but you're flat out
It's yeah,
all the way
it's
through. And then the standards, it's not just a sprint, but you're still pretty much
yeah,
going
I mean,
as
well,
fast as you can, aren't you?
it's
You know
the
what I mean?
same sort of time, really, equivalent time to a half-ish, probably more than that, but actually, with more intensity
Yeah.
and more strategy. And yeah, and also I think the difference for me was Andy helpfully pointed out when I didn't directly qualify at box end was the difference between me and Q4 was my transition times, having
Yeah.
just done Ironman, were like six
Yeah. Yeah.
minutes
Yeah.
and his were like 40 seconds each. Um
That's a learning curve, isn't it? You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's not something you really had to think about before. And
yeah.
now,
So we had to
that's
take
free
our
time. That's free time for you. You've realized that. You'll get
Yeah,
that
so
time back.
we took our bike, we looked like the village nerds, but we took our bikes and our shoes and our helmets to like the vet car park
Yeah.
and practice doing a loop and getting off and getting
Yeah.
back on again and doing a run. And like we did that all summer,
Yeah.
or like for a couple of months before we went to Poland.
Yeah.
And I managed to get my transition times down from 6 minutes to 2:39. So I was dead shaft.
Perfect. Yeah, we
Um
did the same. We've got a co-op across the road, and a couple of our teammates, they went to Poland to do the duathlon. And that's what we did. Car park,
yeah,
get some transition practice
the
done.
only way.
Yeah, you've got to. It's part of it, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
skill. You've got to get your time down. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm that was, that was one of the major differences. And for me, with ADHD and organization is not my strong point. Coordination is not my strong point. And so transitions for me, I think, when I get out of the swim, it takes me a while to stop thinking, well, thank God that's over. And like, I want a couple of minutes to breathe, and you can't have that. And trying to work out, even if you've practiced it a load of times before, what comes first and what comes next. And it's a genuine struggle, I
Yeah.
think.
It's
Um,
like I guess it's putting it into a mantra. That's what I find. If you've got a method of doing the transition, whether it's helmet or shoes or whichever way round you want to do it, and then it's that mantra. You're just saying that over and over and over and over as you're coming out the swim. That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
works for me.
Yeah, and I'm way, it's a long time since I've even practiced it now. I've got a
Yeah,
year and a bit to get back into it. And I'm very much, I think I'm getting there with the fitness. Obviously, like I'm still got a 14-month-old, but like the fitness has definitely had to come first, and we're working on a lot of the base at the moment. But I think this time next year I will be doing a lot more of the vets car park and trying fine tuning it again.
yeah,
So
cool. So you said you'd qualified and you did Poland. How did you find out about age group in the first place?
um I think I was just aware. So we had a couple called Marie and Phil Brush, who they started with North Cotswold Try and Run years ago. And they're lovely people. And I was friends with them, oh, friends with Marie definitely for a while. And I was aware of what she was doing. I also trained with a guy called Richard Good. He's over in Broadway in Worcestershire, and he employed Alex Doherty, who has just, I think, taken gold for the standard duathlon
Okay.
in Pontevedra. So I was just more and more aware of different people doing age group stuff, and that it was a thing that you could do. I never really looked at it as something I could do. Um, but as time went on, I think the lady I did Bolton with and a couple of other people were sort of saying, yeah, you should go and do this. And suddenly it starts to come out in conversation, I guess. And it was just sort of, I was going over to train at Richard Good's, and comments about my power numbers were coming up regularly, and my power's quite high for a woman. So like I guess my FTP was like 256, 259 up there. And people were like, wow, I mean, this is, people were getting excited about what I could do. And I guess you just kind of get caught up in it. And if you've got people who have been there and done
Yeah.
it, saying you could do this if you wanted to do this, and I guess you kind of just go, well, maybe I should do this then, and you kind of, I just got caught up in it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, if you've got experienced people who've been involved and they're saying that, yeah, you should give it a go, obviously it's down to yourself whether you want to do that. But you start thinking, don't you? Yeah, well, maybe I can do it. Why?
Yeah,
Why not? They're saying I could achieve it. They know what they're talking about. Give it a go. What the thing is, what have you got to lose? You've got nothing to lose, have you?
exactly. And I didn't, I guess having done just road running. It's one of these things that it's happened quite organically, really. I've in quite a lot of other things in my life, I felt like I've had to engineer things or work really hard for things to happen. And this seems to be just something that sort of evolved, that I haven't really had to push for. I've obviously had to train hard, but it just seems to have been something that I was really well suited to. Um, and that I over time gradually believed that I could do. And it's a mental process, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you haven't had a training background. to suddenly think, well, well, who am I to do that sort of thing? And um,
Imposter syndrome.
yeah, it really is. It really is. And to be then, I mean, knowing that there are people, I guess, who've wanted to try and qualify for years, and then I did have a sense that I was for a while, that I was sort of just someone new to the scene that kind of I didn't quite just walk in and qualify, but it didn't take me very long. Um, and I think I just felt a bit like like I just arrived and there I was, and I didn't really, yeah, it wasn't something that I wanted to do as a kid, you know. Um, yeah, so it's all just been a bit of a whirlwind, I guess.
Yeah. But we all find it at different times in our lives, don't we? That's the thing.
Yeah,
I've had so
and
many stories that people have not done anything up until X point, and then all of a sudden the universe is aligned, things have happened, like, and here we are. And they've got
yeah,
on the podium and they've got gold and they've done this and they've done, you know what I mean? And they've like, wow.
yeah. And I do feel a bit like that about it, to be honest. That it wasn't something I ever, if you'd asked me when I was, I don't know, like 20, what I'd be doing in 20 years' time, I would never, ever in a million years have said this.
Yeah,
Um, but it just is part of who I am now, and it's I still kind of I still kind of think, is this really me? Is this really what I'm doing? Like it's a kind of pinch yourself sort of thing, because it's a really cool thing to do.
it is.
Um,
It's so cool.
and and you know, you I'm that parent that turns up to the school gates, and I'm an age group athlete. And people like who are not in the I mean, I guess everybody is doing it because it's a cool thing to do. It's something to aspire to do. And then, you know, there's somebody who's actually doing it, and people outside of this kind of world just think it's amazing. They just think and I'm like, I sort of find myself saying, well, I'm not actually that cool. I'm not that cool. It's just a sweatshirt that I can wear. But, I think people think you're better than you are after
Ah,
like,
but right, people may think that. However, you are probably better than 99.5% of the population because you're actually doing it. You look around,
yeah, or
you look around your
or
local village,
putting,
your
yeah,
local
or
town, your
something
county,
consistent.
how many people are actually doing anything, not just what we do, Yeah, I guess
Yeah, and I
we could
think,
take it to the extreme because, like we said earlier, it's a lifestyle. It's what we do.
yeah, it is a lifestyle. Yeah, and I think everything. I don't. It's a very helpful lifestyle as well. It's a very
Yeah.
I think helpful mentality to have.
Mm.
Um, as long as you can, as we talked about, as long as you can curb the gremlins that can come with it, I think, like the unnecessary pressure and, maybe a bit less of the A type. But as long as we're going for like health and longevity and
Yeah.
the whole thing, it's such a brilliant thing to kind of to facilitate that sort of way of life.
Yeah.
It's
And I-
something to keep going with, and
yeah.
it's sort of,
I think as you're getting older, and I know I'm finding as I'm getting older, you know, this is all great, but it's the other bits that we add on as well, like the longevity side of it,
yeah,
helps that side as well, helps the sport,
yeah,
and it comes hand in hand. So it's not just what you physically do, it's what you mentally do, it's what you do when you're not training. It's the rest that's more important than sometimes than the training and what you're eating and all those things that, I haven't grasped till in my 50s, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
I'm picking up all this information and starting to use it so I can have a healthier, longer, better
yeah.
life,
And I don't know about you, but actually, I think when you find that way of working, it's actually easier to do than pushing against yourself all the time. Um, I was very much, I think, a few years ago, in danger of overtraining and ignoring my body. And I think you fall into like a sense of there's a bit of false economy going on if you keep pushing yourself be, and ignoring what your body's saying and pushing through and whatever. And it's actually genuinely easier to listen to your body and train as is effective rather than pushing too hard and pushing yourself into the red all the time and then never quite getting back up to baseline. I think it's mentally harder to take your foot off the gas a little bit and learn to listen to your body. But physically, it's actually much easier and more enjoyable and actually more conducive to some kind of health span and longevity. And
Yeah.
it's, you actually end up with a much better quality of life when you're not overtraining and you're working with what you can actually do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's much more effective and that's really hard. More is not better, and that's really hard to get your head around, I think.
It is, yeah. Especially when you really enjoy training and you really enjoy all of the aspects of it. And it's like, it's hard to reel back sometimes. And like you just said, listen to your body. But, that just comes with experience as well, I think.
Yeah, and I think also when you've had a period of time like I did of not being able to train in the way that I'm used to training, when I was pregnant and then when had Francis and he was really young, and realizing the value of training to you mentally as well as physically. And when you have to take a step back, sometimes it's quite beneficial to kind of reevaluate what you actually get from training rather than, having sort of reevaluating why you do it. And I had a real having those crossroads sometimes thrown up as I think is great for maturing as an athlete, maturing as a person, and really understanding, what your reasons are. And I found with Francis, even though I had retrained in, lifestyle nutrition and lifestyle coaching and as a health coach and as a sports coach, and I'd gone through that whole period of self-development and professional growth and stuff. Postnatal depression still hit me like a brick, and even though I had all of the tools and
Yeah.
I knew everything, it was still, something that I couldn't control. And what I found was going back to running just for the sake of running, just for the love of running. And actually, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I'd say I bloody hated running. It was the bane of my existence. So I'm not very good at it. I try anyway, but I'm never going to be any good at running. And, I was all very sort of annoyed and angry about running. And actually, the one thing I went back to after 5 weeks of having a baby to get my head out of new motherhood and being a mum and being in the house was running. And I went like an airfield. It's an old RAF base where we live. And I met up with my friend and we did some like 2-minute reps or something stupid that I shouldn't have done at 5 weeks after having a baby. But I was just like, do you know what health to it? This is my mental health. And actually recognizing that, when your mind needs something and it's sort of like the other way round to how you would expect.
Mm.
And so for a period of time, I was having to moderate my running after having a baby because everything's, you've still got all the relaxin and all the hormones and everything going around, and that puts you at risk of like pelvic problems and things don't work quite as
Mm.
they would normally. So I went through a period of time where it was turned on its head. Rather than forcing myself to go out for a run, I was having to moderate the amount I was running because I was finding it was actually so good for my mental health and for my sense of who I was. I'd sort of gone full circle, and the thing I know how to do to manage, my well-being and remind myself who I am is to go and run.
Yeah.
And I've got a new, I think just the way everything's happened for me and the break that I've had to take has given me this newfound sort of respect for this nemesis that was my running, that was my weakest thing that I'd never be able to do, and blah blah blah. But actually, we've made friends again just through the fact that I've had to have a break from it,
Yeah.
um, which is
Yeah.
great. It's got, they're all, it just kind of brings home the fact that all of these things at the end of the day, they're all tools for health and well-being, and it's you can either use them to your detriment, or and you can use them to run yourself into the ground,
Yeah.
or you can use them to build you up and to increase your health span and your longevity. And it's how you do that. It's your strategy about how you do that, I think, that really makes you. So
100%. Totally agree. Totally agree. As long I think as long as you're doing something, and if if it's something that you enjoy, I think that's the key. You know,
that's the big
for
thing,
any
isn't
for
it?
anybody to trying to start out to do, if they say, "Oh, I can't do exercise or whatever," but just go and find something that you enjoy doing, and then it's not a chore, is it? It's
Yeah.
like going, and that's I always say this. That's the beauty of multisport, because there's so many different aspects of it. If you don't like swimming, you do duathlon. If you don't like running, you do aquabike, and so on. And so, there's something there for everybody.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
go
You've
and
always got
try.
a choice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, everyone's got a
exactly.
choice. Cool. Well, I mean, that's a really nice story. Um, and I hope you enjoy Pontevedra when it comes round as much
Thank
as
you.
we did, because yeah, we had a blast. And yeah, I'm sure you're going to you've got quite a long time now till it comes around, and you'll have races in between when you get your fitness back up and stuff. So yeah, I'll be keen to see how you progress on Instagram. Now I'll be following you, and
Oh, thanks.
so good luck with it all.
Thank you very much.
So we've just got the quick fire questions to go,
Yeah.
and the first one, as ever, is what's your favorite bit of kit?
Oh, I've got to say, my bike shoes.
Oh,
I have really, really shiny bike shoes. They are awesome. They're turquoise. They're
nice.
blingy. Yeah, they're fab.
Don't often have bike shoes on as the best bit of kit, but I like that one.
Best things ever.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's good. And then I know it's a bit difficult for you because you are where you are at the moment, but what's a week of training looking like for you at the moment?
Well, I actually, um, over the last, well, since I've found Angela and she's been doing my training plan, I have got back to the watt bike. So I'm really, really enjoying the watt bike. So I probably do 3 sessions of watt bike a week. I'm doing some heavy lifting where I can. She's got me on a bit of a program there, and then I'll do a few runs. One will be like a long, easy run. I'll have a reps session, and then some threshold work. Um, and similar for the watt bike sessions, actually, I'm on sort of like an FTP improver. My
Yep.
FTP is probably down to, I did an FTP test a few weeks ago, so I've lost 40. So I'm back to 221. So I'm on to like an FTP improver plan for the
Mm.
next few months. Not swimming at the moment just because it's so hard
Yeah.
to find the time to drive all the way there and get all the way back, and it's just access is crap around here. But yeah, so doing mainly running and cycling, and then quite a bit of strength.
Excellent. Yeah. And what advice would you give um, and I'm gonna be a bit more specific now. Normally I'd say
Okay.
for people want to get into multi-sport, but I'm gonna say for people for new mums getting back into exercise, what advice would you give them?
I would say, and I've actually given this advice recently to someone I coach, is the number one thing is carving out that time daily for yourself. And once you've got that time, and that's often a case of telling everybody you know that that's your time. And I know that so many people feel that there is just no time. But genuinely, like it's, I think you often have to, that's the hardest bit is making an hour a day for yourself.
Yeah.
And you almost have to be ruthless about what you have to do in order to come by that, whether it's paying for childcare, um, shamelessly asking somebody else for help, whatever you have to do, find that hour a day. And then once you've got that hour a day, you have it opens up choices as to what you do with that. If you're knackered, go for a walk, but like get outside.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, get outside. So there are times. when so I have my watt bike in the garden, which is, I know a lot of people say if you want to ride outside, go and ride outside. But I often do my sessions at nap time. So I have a baby asleep upstairs
Mm.
and I put my watt bike in the garden. So I have the benefits of being outside and also cycling. No, I'm not moving, but I know that I need to be outside. So I think two things: carve out that time and be ruthless about it because there is time if you
Yeah,
need, like you just have to make it.
yeah,
Um, and commit to going outside in that time, commit to putting some shoes on and going outside. And then everything else seems possible, or that there are more choices after that.
cool. Brilliant advice. And what's on advice? What's the best bit of advice anybody's ever given you?
Oh, I think that you can't be anything to anybody else if you don't look after yourself first. I think whether I've managed to take that advice or not completely, it's harder to do than to say, but I think it is absolutely the truest thing you'll ever hear that if you are not putting care into yourself, you've got nothing to give anybody else after that. So it often doesn't make sense when there are so many people needing your time and attention. Um, and when you feel really thinly spread, it's very difficult, but to take that time because it pays forward,
Yeah, no,
definitely.
I totally agree, 100% with that because, you know, before we went, well, things going on in our life, family things, and Kate's really busy at work, and so we had family issues, didn't know whether we were going to get away at all, um, and I'd left it to for her to decide what she wanted to do.
Mm.
Um, but I'm so glad that we did manage to get away because it's just so important to take when life, your work and your family is all encompassing, it's so important to actually take, like you just said, take that time out of those situations and give yourself a break because if you don't recuperate mentally and physically, like you just said, you're no good to anybody else because you'll just burn yourself out. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
so true. I mean, it's so important to really look after yourself and give yourself that space
And
mentally and
I
physically.
think the ways you approach problems and other people's needs when you haven't had a break are far less effective
Yeah,
and probably almost counterproductive. And when you get a chance to spend some time out, you almost you get a chance to change perspective, reprioritize, and when you go back to something having had a break, you can often be so much more helpful to the
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
So it's almost silly to try and keep going sometimes.
Mhm. Cool. And finally, what, excuse me, your shorter goal is probably Pontevedra. What's your longer term goal? What do you want to do?
Well, in terms of sport,
Yeah,
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Well, I think Andy and I met our longer term goal in Alston a couple of years ago. And, if either of us can look like that at in the 75 to 80 category and still be independent, that's that's a long-term goal,
yeah.
ultimately. Um, in terms of what I think the races and the choice of sports and the choice of anything is all kind of just incidental, but that's really the ultimate goal. And I guess the reason why I'm doing what I do is to inspire other people to try and not necessarily do this,
Mm,
but to make choices that are not easy choices to make in the short term, but will pay into the future in terms of health span. And I think in that vein, the long-term goal for us is to be moving out to the Alps and and running a retreat center, like for athletes and for me, like women with ADHD,
Yeah.
and helping people to um, holistically gather the tools and mechanisms that they need to help themselves move forward in a productive, healthy way towards health span. I think that's sort of the main aim for both of us, really.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, good luck with it all. I
Thank
hope
you.
I hope you manage to, especially out in the Alps, because that sounds idyllic if you can pull that one off.
Oh, well, it's a 5-year plan,
Yeah. Well,
definitely.
it's great to have a plan, isn't it?
Yeah, always.
Cool. Well, listen, it's been lovely to talk to you and hear
You
your
too.
story. And I'm not going to take any more of your time up because we've been on a while already.
Yeah.
But just thank you once again for reaching out and sharing your story on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, what an incredible journey. And that's proof, isn't it, that sport can be so much more than what we actually do. And in Pippa's case, swim, bike, and run. And from overcoming the adversity, like as a kid, not knowing what was going on, to racing for Team GB, uh, it was a great story and a great reminder that it's never too late to start and try and change and thrive. So, if you've been inspired by this episode, don't forget to share it with someone who needs to. And if you're an age group athlete and you've represented your country, please do get in touch. You can find us on our own YouTube channel, which is AmpGB. We're on Instagram at amp_podcast. We're on Facebook at Richard Joseph Conway. And you can email us at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks once again for listening, and don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.